All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Calling a Man's Answer Show, episode 79. My guest today, his name is Che. I hope that's how you pronounce it. I think it is. Just go ahead and introduce yourself, what you do, who you are, things like that, man.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the invite and everything like that, and the opportunity to talk about my platform and what I try to do. My name is Che. I'm the host of the No Spoon podcast on Scoon TV. That's where you can find the episodes at scoontv.com. But and I just we talk about politics, we talk about social issues, we talk about morals, values, we talk about all these type of things, and that's what I hope to do, is to try to bring that kind of perspective of getting back to a more logical approach to life, to more common sense approach. And I think we're not just teetering. I mean, I think we're there to where people are abandoning that logic, and we're going towards a different direction, which is a direction that makes us susceptible to nefarious causes and purposes. So that's what we try to do. We talk about the truth, and we talk about things unfiltered and regardless of narrative.
Yeah, I think that's actually really, really cool because so at Pacific, I told you I'd go here, but I didn't say what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I am a politics and government major with a minor in philosophy, with the end goal being I want to go to law school, get my degree in law, practice law somewhere, more civil side. But
Cool.
one of the things that I've been most intrigued with especially my college years is long form discussion, especially starting this podcast, and how that's not really not that it's not really allowed, but it's not really like pursued by a lot of people anymore. If you have any disagreement on politics, and especially if you're not aligned with the narrative. I go to a pretty liberal school. It's a liberal arts school in Oregon. If you're not aligned with that politically, it's almost like dissent's not really allowed. And so for you to come on or for you to just have your own platform and to say that, I want to get back to this, like just discourse about disagreement, because I feel like that's how things grow and things change. I think it's really important that people like you are doing that. I mean, obviously we all know Joe Rogan, he does that. There are some people who still push for that, but I feel like what you said about it not really being, or we're striving away from it, or we have moved away from it. It's a little frightening. I think you agree.
Oh, definitely. And just like how you're saying right there about like long form discussion and these type of things, like the people if you have to notice, like people don't even understand how to have to make an argument nowadays.
Yeah.
Like like just talk to people and you're like, wait a minute, we were talking about this and somehow we've circled all the way over here. So
Yeah.
we got to get back to like real basics. And that's what I'm saying. Like even understanding how to have an argument with somebody, how to sit here and to have a position, make an argument, provide evidence, and not take us off track to what happened to you when you were 7 years old. Like that's the problem. Is like let's just call a spade, and let's all just agree that what we can see and what we can understand to be real and to be factual. Let's start with that premise. But we don't do that. That's not what's going on now.
Definitely. And I think I really do think that people truly believe that their subjective opinions matter. I think that goes along with the boom of social media, especially something like Twitter and TikTok and things like that, where people can just say whatever they want and however they feel, and then they can get a lot of attention for it. And I think that's problematic in a lot of ways, because I feel like if you haven't studied something for long enough, you can't really consider your opinion factual. You really have to do substantial research. And like one of the major things that we're seeing right now is like the arguments versus science versus non-science, and whether that science is backed by just funding and backed by political agreements, or if it's actual research being done and conducted and peer reviewed. And I think the more we move towards a society, I think we already have a society that's backed on funding from the power, instead of just actual seeking the truth. I think the more you get closer to a totalitarian society where or like even like I don't know if you ever seen or read the book The Giver, where like people are being, I mean, I know you talked about the red pill and the blue pill and everything like that, but I feel like we're being it's almost like we're being fed an indoctrination from birth, and that unless you like really start doing your own research about how things work and how things act and really like critically thinking for yourself, you're just gonna like you can just wither away and just be almost like a machine of the system.
And that's kind of where we're going. I mean, just look at, I mean, what do you call it? Facebook just introduced that metaverse,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, I looked into it a little bit and I'm like, this is kind of insane. But if you really think about it, we're already kind of being programmed to accept this type of stuff, to where we're starting to become desensitized to humanity. You know what I mean? And the people that are claiming to be so compassionate and so you know, sympathetic towards humanity are really the people that are doing the most damage to us, are really the people that are suppressing most of humanity and desensitizing us to humanity. And so it's like, you know, we're headed in that direction. We're starting to become okay and comfortable with atrocious things happening to people that disagree with us. You know what I mean? That we don't, that like, no, that's the problem, is like nobody has said, at least I've never said, people should die for personal decisions or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but the other, I've been told to die
Mm-hmm.
over personal decisions. So it's like, you know, it's hard to have these discourses when we don't understand how to, let's start on facts. And
Yeah.
once we don't start on facts, then people are going to start living in alternative universes, or, you know, realities in which they're trying to introduce to us and keep us all preoccupied. It's like, you know, like you said, just another cog in the machine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so the thesis that I'm writing right now, because I was really fascinated with, first off, why we never talk about the Soviet Union in undergrad, or not even undergrad, K through 12. You know, why don't we ever talk about that? Everyone talks about the Nazis, but you never hear about the Gulag Archipelago or the things that happened in the Soviet Union under communism. So I was really fascinated with that. And so I'm writing my thesis on the difference between what Karl Marx wrote and basically the Soviet Union's ideology. And what you found was, under the ideology of the Soviet Union, under Vladimir Lenin's ideology of Marxism, Leninism, they were so okay with murdering dissenters and killing off the people that disagreed with them, to the point at which it became so crucial. And obviously Vladimir Lenin died and Joseph Stalin took control, but it became so bad that in Eastern Germany, in the after World War II, when the German Empire fell and it was split into communism and West Germany was capitalist, one out of every three people were communist spies, and that means someone in your family was basically a spy telling on you and things like that. It became so bad, and it all goes back to this idea that if you're not okay with open form disagreement and discourse, and you're okay, like what you said, like letting atrocious things happen to the enemy, not even the enemy, just a person that disagrees with you, it's really easy to become dogmatic behind what you believe to be true. An example of that is in the Soviet Union, they had something called democratic centralism, which was the idea that open discourse was allowed up until the point a decision was made. And then once a decision was made, you couldn't dissent or you're done. They're going to kill you, basically. And I think if we're not careful, that's not that far off, you know, happening in Western
No,
society.
oh no, yeah, we're definitely getting there. And so, but this is what they do. I mean, this is what they do um, in any type of authoritative type of state, is you have to create public sentiment that favors your position. And that means really demonizing people that disagree with you. That's really what it comes down to. Is you see everything that you see that's going on, there's the state, and then there's the people. And when I say the state, I mean I don't mean just government. I mean
Yeah.
the corporate America, the corporations, the big tech. All these people are in. They're one conglomerate,
Yeah.
basically. You know what I mean? So it's like them and us, and the propaganda, the things you get from entertainment, the things you get from celebrities, the things you get. All those things are directing you in the direction of giving them more power. That's really what it comes down to. So it's like it what they do is they demonize certain people. They demonize people that disagree with them. The
Mm-hmm.
Nazis did it, Soviets did it, Mao did it, everybody did it, and you have to do that in order to justify the things that you have in store for them. Because first and foremost, you have to win the hearts and minds of the people. You have to get consent,
Mm-hmm.
because without that consent, then people are going to resist. But when you make things to where, hey, they're giving us the consent to do this, that's a different story. People start to go along with it. And so that's what they're doing. And they're doing that. They're trying to create this rift between, you know, here in the West, Americans particularly, they're trying to create a rift between us so that they can justify the things that they have in store. And that's
Yeah.
where it gets dangerous.
I think it's really dangerous right now that they are positing the idea that white men are the enemy, and that atrocious things should be allowed to happen to them. I mean, we can get into this. Kyle Rittenhouse, for example. I don't know if you've done any research in that, but from a
Mm-hmm.
legality standpoint, a legal standpoint, there was no argument to be made by the prosecution, and you can see that if you watch the trials. There was really no argument that the prosecution had, besides maybe the fact that he maybe shouldn't have had the AR. Right? That was the argument that was a little bit pretty valid. And there's a conversation to be had there, but the conversation that's not to be made is there's nothing to do with race within this trial, and there was nothing to do with he killed people in self-defense. So those are the two arguments. It was never about race. It was always about self-defense. Yet all we see, or if you go on Twitter, all you see is people making the race argument. That if this was a black
Mm-hmm.
person, that it would go differently, or if Kyle Rittenhouse is a racist, he hates black people, or he hates everyone that's not white. He's part of the Trumpian America, and you sit here and you're saying, and they wanted so badly for him to be imprisoned, and if he would have got the death penalty, they would have cheered.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things we are seeing is that the left primarily is okay with destroying cities, especially cities that have a high amounts of poverty, and when they don't get their way. And I don't understand how people can't look at that objectively and say, okay, you can go too far on the right, for sure. We know that. You can get to a point where you are severely racist, especially we can see that with the Nazis. We can see that with American society. We can. But
Mm-hmm.
people don't realize that you can go too far on the left, and we have. The base of the left has gone too far, in my mind.
They've gone way too far. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I give this, this is one of my favorite analogies to this. It's almost like, if you came to me and you said, man, we got to do something about, these endangered lions. And okay, cool. And you saying, hey man, lions are, they're really demonized they're really not as dangerous and as a threat to humans as they say. I would say, okay, cool. And you would say, and if you came and you said, hey, we need to do something about lions, man, I was, okay, that's fine. We need to, let's protect them. Let's do this. But if you said, hey, I'm about to move a lion into our house, I would say, man, we hold on. Like, you're taking it too far. And I
Yeah.
think that that's where we're at. It's almost like, I get the feel good policies. I get the things that make make for a nice story. But at the end of the day, we have to be realistic about things. We have to be
Mm-hmm.
realistic about, when you have tents lined up around the corner from an elementary school because of, and people doing, shooting up meth and heroin and all this type of stuff right around the corner. A lot of them, sex offenders. That we have to draw a line. We have to start saying, wait a minute here, man. This is getting out of control.
Mm-hmm.
This is too much. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
used to live downtown by MacArthur Park, downtown LA. And the things that you would see in a park
Yeah.
is we have to start being realistic here, man. We have to start telling people the truth and saying things for what it is. And that's that with that case, that's kind of every argument against it was just based on a hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was the hypothetical people were getting treated worse than the real people get treated.
Mm-hmm.
because hypothetically they would do this and they would do that, but that's not how our society should function, to where we start to make, play with people's lives based on how you feel he was thinking,
Yeah.
or feel like we have to get back to this. Things have to be concrete.
Mm-hmm.
They have to, because if not, then we start letting lions come in and then they eat us and we get destroyed. And then we're like, well, how come we didn't see that coming? That's where we're at.
So I don't know if you ever read any Plato, but in his book, The Republic, he talks about the
Mm-hmm.
worst states, or the worst governmental forms, political systems. And he says that the second worst is democracy, because democracy leads into tyranny, because too much democracy, when basically mob rule, once mob starts ruling, then you're one step away from one person taking complete control. And I think people don't realize that, and what they really don't realize is that's why the American system works, because it's not a democracy; it is a democratic republic. The reason the
Mm-hmm.
electoral college works is because if it didn't, the candidates would only go talk to New York City, LA. They would only go talk to
Mm-hmm.
Miami. They would only go talk to the largest cities in America, because they just need the population. And the reason the left wants this is because big cities favor liberal ideology. And so
Mm-hmm.
we don't understand that. What people don't especially understand from cities is that the United States is so diverse. It is so diverse. We have 50 states, and everybody in these different, I mean, you can make an argument that the middle of the United States, they live a lot alike. They farm, things like that. But like, we have
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii is a state just as much as Florida is, and just as much as Montana is.
Right.
We're very diverse with all different types of ideas, and people think that they're always right. And it's so crazy to me, because I feel like most of the time I'm probably wrong about things, when I'm talking to
Mm-hmm.
someone. And I'm okay with that as long as we're trying to be better, I want people to live better lives. I want the homeless problem to be solved. I want the environment to
Mm-hmm.
not be, horrible. I want us to live in a life where my children can grow up happy. They can have friends of all different types of races. But I feel like we're being put in these categories where, if you're not anti-racism, and if you don't understand that you're the problem as a white man or as a white person, then you're racist. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
why can't we just live in a society where we want it to be better and strive for better by discussion, instead of just demonizing each other? Because that's what the people who are actually oppressing the people want.
Right. Yeah. Because we live amongst narcissists, and these people who have it's not enough for you to, coexist. You have to agree with them. You have to like them, because, power, when you talk about power, and the more power that you get, power is also very insecure. It's very unstable, because
Mm-hmm.
power can be taken at any moment. So, and you're constantly having to defend your power. And this is what you see that's going on. The more that this power becomes centralized, the more insecure that power is going to become, because people are going to be, it's like I'm a big New England Patriots fan, right? That's my team. And but you have to understand, and this is something that you understand as a Patriots fan, every time your team plays in any team, right, they're giving it their best. They're coming at them
Mm-hmm.
harder. That's what happens when you're at the top. So the more this power becomes centralized, the more pressure it's going to feel from the outside. So it's constantly having to defend itself, and and that creates insecurities, and insecurities turns into narcissism as
Mm-hmm.
a defense mechanism. This is like a whole psychological thing that you have going on here. So it's anytime like, if me and you have a disagreement, and you say, we can talk. I say, man, Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, and you say, no, I think Aaron Rodgers is. That your opinion doesn't threaten mine. Like, I don't feel like, what? Like, how dare you say that? Like, that's fine. That's your opinion, and I'm cool with that. But that's not how these insecure people think. Like, we are really, like, we're really at that cycle of hard times create strong men, and strong men
Mhm.
create good times, and good times create weak men, and weak men create hearts. Like, we're really seeing that whole cycle. And this is the weakness of people, to where I can't allow you to disagree with me. So I
Mhm.
have to force you to agree. I think everybody should be anti-racist, right?
Yeah.
However, the problem becomes when is when you start to make who gets to decide the definition of anti-racist.
Yeah.
When you say it, and then conveniently your definition coincides with you attaining more power, I have a problem with that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So it's almost like, if you want to call something racist just because it benefits you, like this Rittenhouse thing, like race. Is it possible that he went over there because he wanted to kill uh non-white people? Of course it's
Yeah, of
possible.
course
And
it's
and we
possible. Yeah.
I mean, we would do you think that we'll ever be able to know that definitively? No,
No.
probably not. But so we have to go by what we know. There's
Mhm.
also a possibility he went over there to defend people's property.
Mhm.
It's also a possibility that he wanted to be Rambo. There's all kind of possibilities,
Yeah.
but we can't just harp on one because it benefits your agenda.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's the
Mhm.
problem. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I feel like what most people would think anti-racism means is that you are against racism and you want that everyone to have an equal chance at life. You want everyone to be from birth. You want everyone to have the equal chance of opportunities. That's what you feel like anti-racism would mean. But anti-racism, I feel like it means nowadays is that if you're white, you are privileged from birth, and that if you are not actively admitting your faults for being a white person and trying to help other people um, sustain a position almost above you, or they would say equal to you and then above, and keep pushing them forward, then you are a racist. And I would disagree. I feel like racism is something that is taught. I think is learned. I think there are racist people in America. I think there are racist policies in America that are still stemmed today from slavery. But I don't think that we could say that. I don't think we could say that most white people are racist in America. I don't think we can say that. I don't even think we could say that. I don't even think we could say that most policies being passed today have racist undertones. I think we can say that there are problems that we need to fix, but we can't fix them by just blaming white people for the problems that our forefathers and their forefathers did, you know? Because here's the thing, especially with the idea of like paying descendants of slavery, the DACAs, you
Mm-hmm.
know, who pays that, right? Because like, think about my family. My last name is Weirs. It's a German last name. My family came here after the Civil War. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't own slaves. They weren't rich. Would I have to pay that tax because I'm white? Because once we get into that, it's very tricky and you can't pinpoint it, right? And it's like, I think the only way to go about it is to find what the problem is, which
Mm-hmm.
is that there's too much inequality right now, and it's making the system want to boil on top of itself. We can all agree that inequality is bad, but we can also agree that we need an ability to have innovation, which is like inequality drives innovation because people don't want to be at the bottom for all their lives. So we need a way to bring the spoils at the top down to the bottom and through the middle, so that not everybody's stuck at like
Mm-hmm.
down there, while also admitting that people need a way to fight out. People need something to fight against. And if it's not poverty, or if it's not sports or something like that, it's against each other, right? And I think a lot of the people who are fighting right now are middle class people who have nothing better to do with their time than argue about other people's experiences. Because I feel like if you were poor and you need to
Mm-hmm.
put food on the table, you're not worrying about the color of somebody else's skin, the gender of somebody else, or
Mm-hmm.
the sexuality of somebody else. You're worried about putting food on your kid's table, right? So we need a way to get the money down to the people who are stuck at the bottom, while also admitting that we need ways for people to move up and down. You know?
I agree with you. I think that the problem is that the the inequality or the people that you as you said stuck at the bottom. I think it's systematically being done.
Yeah.
And so there's that's how you maintain this power. You have
Yeah.
to make like we're doing exactly what they want us to do. We keep saying, oh, we need to fix this. Yeah, that's what we say, but and they're saying it, but they're not doing it.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
there's a reason for that. You know what I mean? Because we are about to see a financial collapse. Like we are about to see, but this is something Ron Paul been talking about this since we went off the gold standard in 1971. So it's like this is inevitably going to happen, and people are getting stuck more and more in debt, and people are stuck, so when you're stuck in these places, because the real problem, and I think most Americans, I don't care what race you are or what demographic, care more about the gas prices than they do about whether Kyle Rittenhouse goes free or not. This is a real, like,
100%.
I think if you told everybody, look, if we got gas down, I mean, out here, I'm in LA, it's $5 a gallon. So if you came and said, hey, this guy can he can go to jail for the rest of his life, but we're going to get the gas down to $2, I would be more concerned about the gas. I would be like, well, man, I made your decision.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm just saying that's the reality. People are more concerned on a day. They might talk about this case more, but the reality is you're concerned about gas prices. You're concerned about food prices. And it's here.
Mm-hmm.
So all these things were inevitable. They just did a very good job of keeping our mind preoccupied on things that really didn't matter at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The mechanic down the street, because he happens to be a white guy, that he has no more power. You know what I mean? Like he's not the guy that's causing this.
No,
he's not the guy that's making this. He didn't make the gas prices that. You know what I mean? So it's like that's what they want. They want you to be focused on him and each other than what's really going on. And that's smoking. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say 100%. So one of the things that, because when Karl Marx was writing, he was writing during the Industrial Revolution, and one of the things he said about capitalism was the bourgeoisie, which is like the capitalist, they indoctrinate the working class by giving them ideology, by putting this ideology on, this is how the system works. You're at the bottom because you're bad. You're going to stay there. The capitalist is good. You're making money for the capitalist, basically. And they do that, and they make people have this false consciousness, make people argue within themselves, and it basically keeps the people at the top, the capitalists at the top. And in this state, the state and the government and the corporations. And one of the things he said is that the working class was going to become so fed up with this, or the people were going to become so fed up with this, that there was going to be a violent revolution and overthrow the government, and socialism would naturally occur after that. Now, he was wrong about that. And I think he was wrong because what we're seeing now is that we're all fed up with the way the system's working. You have to be making a certain amount of money. You have to be high or upper middle class to be like, not care about gas prices, like you said, or not care about food prices. And so everyone's fed up. And so everyone's mad right now. But the media and the government and the corporations are indoctrinating the people, making it feel like the battles between the working class and the battles between the workers. And it's not between us and the top, and then they indoctrinate the people, and they make it seem like race is the issue, gender is the issue, sexuality is the issue, when the issue is these corporations are so greedy, and these people are so greedy, and that they're willing to do whatever to keep people impoverished, to keep them making more and more and more money. So I think that's what we're seeing right now. I think we're seeing propaganda, like you were talking about earlier, being pushed upon people through TikTok and through ads on Hulu, through billboards, through adding politics to it, in order to keep people fighting against each other instead of fighting the system, which needs to be fought. Like you said, the systematic system keeping people impoverished, especially people of color and minorities. They make it seem like other poor people. So like they want us to fight with poor white people and poor black people. They want them to fight so that they don't come together and uprise against the government, against the oppressive forces at will.
Yeah, 100%. I think that there's a different dynamic when you're talking about more like communities of color. I think there's a different there's so it's almost like they're playing, you know, the antagonist. So you have straight white males, conservative, mostly Christian. That's the epitome of evil. And then so that's one way to keep everybody focused on that. But the other thing that they're doing is more so, it's not so much of let me just direct non-white people to be mad at white people. It's more like, I also want non-white people to take on the role of being a perpetual victim. And to me, that's another form of the oppression, is that when you start to tell people that this is what you are. Hold on. Sorry about that. Somebody was calling.
No,
anyways when you start to tell people that you are a victim, you are constantly being oppressed. There is no way for it said okay, cool. Yeah. You know what I mean? When you start to tell people that you're at a disadvantage, what that does psychologically, it's like you're giving a person an excuse even before they started. So psychologically, you know, the person that it feels like this is it, my back is against the wall, I'm going to fight my way out of it. I'm the only person that's going, it's on me. I win or lose based on me. That person is going to fight a lot harder than a person that goes, I'm going to fight, but if I don't win, it's not really my fault.
Yeah.
And so you see what I'm saying? So they keep that, and what the solution to this problem is always to give this third entity, which is the regime, or whatever you want to call it, more power. It always goes back to that. It always goes back to the more power for the ruling, more power for the ruling class, and less for the people. And they're going to do it in the name of saving people who need to be saved. When if you realize, if you just took the crutch off, there would be, the inequalities would change, because we see that happen. We see that happen all the time when people overcome that type of, I mean, you just got to look at success stories, no matter what the color is. The person understood that they were going to, despite whatever hardships, they were going to overcome it. And so we don't do that anymore. We don't tell people they can overcome anything. We tell people that you have to, where you're at in life is where you're always going to be. And it's that white man's fault over there.
Yeah. It's almost like for one thing, it's like the caste system in India. You know, you stay there, you're always going to be there. But it's also almost like, in order for people to, because a lot of people don't care about politics until it's something that they care about, right? Like nobody cared, honestly. Nobody cared about the president even during Obama's term. Nobody was like, not this close. It took Trump getting elected and social media and the media really pushing the race argument and the homophobia argument to get people pissed off. It really did. Like nobody gave a shit about the Obama presidency. I mean, maybe at the beginning, like they did, but like it was not like this. Now everything you see is something about Joe Biden or something about Trump. And my fear is the Republican Party has now became the symbol of racism in America.
Right.
And that's dangerous, because there are a lot of Republicans who are not, I wouldn't call myself a Republican, but there's a lot of Republicans who are not racist. And I fear that if it's not Trump who wins the GOP nomination next year, they're still going to demonize them and call them a racist.
Guaranteed.
And so
they
now
called Larry Elder. They called Larry Elder a racist, a white.
They called him a white supremacist. That was crazy. That how can you even make a logical argument like that? That doesn't make any sense.
That's what I'm saying. So we're there, bro.
It's scary because it's like, what comes after this? You know, it doesn't seem like this is going to be, if we continue on this path of um groups of people who feel like they've been oppressed, and for some, like, there is some truth to it too. The reason that
Right.
it's a problem is because there's truth to it, you know. um um Gay and lesbian couples couldn't get married until, in all states, until 2016. Interracial couples couldn't get married until, I don't know when loving happened, but 70s or 80s. We know the history of black and whites in America. You don't have to go back far
Right.
at all for you to see racism, like true real racism, and
Mm-hmm.
you always catch a glimpse. Somebody, once in a while, I mean, that dude with the Burger King crown on the plane yelling the N-word, like, there's a lot of people in this country who are
Mm-hmm.
still racist. But if that's the main argument, if race and all these things are the main argument in politics going forward, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause it doesn't seem like, peace and discourse is the answer. It seems like pitchforks and
Right.
guns, knives are the answer. Yeah, that's what we're leading to. What do you think what do you think the future looks like if we continued on this path?
Well, that's the nature of identity politics. So when you play identity politics, it creates the hierarchy of the oppressed and who is the most oppressed. So what happens is that when they talk about the intersectionality, right? That's when we start to understand that the oppressed today become the oppressor tomorrow. So for instance, you could say right now you're a white male, so you're not even on the charts. So you are the oppressor
Yeah, because I'm straight
now,
too.
right? And you're straight,
Yeah.
right? So the problem is, so we can say you could take a black male and you can say, well, a straight black male, he's oppressed because he's black,
Mm-hmm.
but he's less oppressed than a black woman
Mm-hmm.
because of her gender. So now he's the oppressor. So after we get rid of the white male, then we have to go, who's the next on the totem pole? Who's at the top of the food chain? The white male is gone. Is it the white female? Oh, but she's going to hide behind the feminist thing. So now it's the black male because he's the straight black male, and you already start to see that in society going after this, because they're starting to move on, because once we get past the white male, then the next is the black male, because a straight black male will be the next target that he has to be gotten, and they've already started, like they started
Mm-hmm.
doing that. So that's why there's now an agenda with the whole Lil Nas X, all these different type of black artists they're putting the gay ones to the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you already see it. What the end game is that the people that are kind of remove themselves from this whole equation because their money and their power and their wealth, their influence transcends all that. They're the ones that are going to be left at the end. They're the ones going to be, they're the ones going to be left standing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and most of them, coincidentally, are, straight white males or straight black males or whatever. I mean, whatever it is, it's like most of the people that are at the top right now are also at the top of this other, but they've
Mm-hmm.
transcended it. Nobody cares. Like Jeff
Yeah.
Bezos is not involved. Like, trust me,
No,
no
it's
one's
not.
no one's going to say anything about him, and you haven't.
Or like, I mean, people start to talk about Bill Gates because of how weird he is and how creepy he is with all the things he does, but like, um, what's that one guy's name, dude? I can't even think of his name. Warren. His first name is Warren. I'm pretty sure.
Warren Buffett,
Is that his name?
he's the investor. Yeah.
Yeah. No one talks about him. Nobody.
Well, no, I mean, and it's like, you know, and then when you play these games, see, you have a political agenda going on at the same time as you're trying to play identity politics, and so what it leaves is a lot of different contradictions. But people are so emotional nowadays. They're
Yeah.
so led by their emotions that it doesn't even matter. So if you're sitting here and you've been telling me that the epitome of evil is a straight white male, you're dancing in the streets for electing a straight white male to come and save you. Like, it doesn't, like, Joe Biden is still in the same category, but because he talks to you in a different way, you think that oh, it's not him. Anybody but, like, don't you think that the person that was trying to manipulate you would try to keep you away from the truth? And the
Yes.
things that you're being fed are probably the things that you should be questioning.
Yes.
I follow, and I was talking about this last night on the show I was doing. I follow more liberal, left leaning sources. I'm always looking at, I follow celebrities. I always follow their stuff and see what they're
Yes.
saying, because it's all, there's a pattern. You start to see a pattern. They're all leading you in one direction. So, you know, going back to what we talked about earlier about being able to disagree and have these kind of discourses with people that challenge your beliefs, to me, that's the only way to be. I look at that stuff because I'm always challenging my beliefs. I'm
Mhm.
always saying, okay, let me look at it from your point of view. And at the end of the day, I'm always going to be right, because that's the side I want to choose. If I was sitting here saying 1 + 1 is 3, and you came over here and said that's not true, it's 2, I'm going to get with you. I'm going to be like, okay, I agree. So at the end of the day, I'm right, because
Mhm.
now I'm saying 1 + 1 is 2. I'm not going to argue with you. I want to do the right thing. And so at the end of the day, I would match myself up with these, but people don't, with things that contradict what I say, because that's going to get you to where you're supposed. That's what these discourses are for. It's supposed to strengthen society and strengthen our beliefs, but people don't want to have that.
No, I
We're
don't.
so led by the emotions these days.
To go off that, Edward Bernstein, who was a 20th century, I think, Marxist socialist thinker before anything really occurred. He had famously said, or something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing, that revolution and violence is emotion taking over the mind, and reform and discourse is the mind taking control of emotion. He thought that the only way to get things done and the only way to really instill socialism is through policy, is through the reform slowly over time. And so we see those ideas in like Sweden, and we see those ideas in like Canada, and even in the United
Mhm.
States. There's a lot of socialist policies in the United States. But I agree. I think once you start demonizing and start saying, fuck it, let's flip the system upside down. Let's go tear down the cities. Let's go fight the system in the ways that we know how. We can riot, we can protest, we can do things like that. Once you start doing that, and then once you start fighting with other people there, that's what they want.
Oh
Because
yeah.
at the local level, or even on the far right, they stormed the Capitol. An example is right there is
Hmm.
people who are so far indoctrinated by the right that they stormed the Capitol of the United States. Like there's not once you're playing to their game, you've lost entirely, because they play on your emotions. That's all they want. Is they want to feed that part of you that you don't even really want to have, but they do it so
Hmm.
well. The right plays on the part that's like, you're a white man. You've done nothing in your life to hurt these other people. You just want to work hard and you think other people should do it. These people are the enemy. They're telling you that you're the enemy. They're telling you this. It's like and they rigged the election, and they're telling you that. And then on the left, they're like, you're oppressed. These white people, these powerful old white people have oppressed you for centuries. You're just gonna let them do that, and then they puppeteer at the top. Joe.
Hmm.
I am sure Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi have grabbed coffee multiple times. You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
man, look.
They puppeteer. They don't give a shit about everybody else. They don't care about their sides. They care about keeping the people fighting against each other, and they just keep getting more and more greedy and more power and more money. But it's not even about the power money when you're in politics. It's about the power. It's about the look at me.
Hmm.
I've been a senator this many years. I'm about to be a president of the United States. Look at me. I am God almost in their eyes. And it's
That
scary, dude.
it's a drug. That
Yeah.
attention that
Yeah.
people need me. I'm wanted. I'm because you hold a strategic political office that people need. They need to get this done. They need to get that done. Like I think about these things, like when I think about politics and things like that, and it kind of brings you down to more of a simplistic way of looking at it. And I always say, politics, think about the politics that's played at your job. Think about your politics that's played in school. Like there's always the guy that likes that the manager likes more, and then his people like that. Like this is and then look how willing people are to stab each other in the back over $1 raise.
Yeah.
You don't think that there's some real politicking going on when there's billions and billions of dollars at stake?
No, for
Like
sure.
this is this is par for the course. It's like, but we don't think about it like that. For some reason, I always say that people have a cinematic mind, meaning they view the world through how movies taught them the world is. Most people will sit there and they'll watch. I was watching that movie Straight Outta Compton last night, and there was a scene within the cops. I mean, it was just so extra. Like I've never seen cops act like that. And I'm from LA. I'm from out here. I've seen all this. I've been to jail. I've been all that stuff, and it's like it's just so like dramatic, and obviously it's a movie, but people take that and subconsciously that's how they interpret the world. Yeah, man, you see the cops, they're gonna do this, they're gonna beat you up, they're gonna do this, and it's like, well, what's your interaction with the cops be? Oh man, they just kind of gave me a warning one time, and another time they wrote me a ticket, and that was it. But it's like, so why do you go with that narrative? Why would you ask to discuss how do you feel the cops are, or how do you what's your sentiments on them? You give me this parallel reality that doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think people think the same thing about politics too. It's like, well, they wouldn't do that. And it's always easier to say they wouldn't do that because then that justifies why you're not doing anything about it.
True.
You know what I mean? Most people, they don't want to look into all this because once they look into it, then it's like, now you have an obligation. What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would rather just let's make excuses for it. That way I don't have to do anything about it. And that to me, that's the cowardice that's kind of taken over our population now. And that's what's bringing us down.
Well, also, I think that we've strayed away from the people with the highest intelligence talking and deciding things, because nobody wants to be in politics. If you're severely intelligent, you're not going into politics. You're not. You don't want to do that job. And and then if you are smart and you are looking out in this society and you're like, well, this is stupid, and you're not going to play the indoctrination, because I feel like there's a lot of professors and people with PhDs out there who are just afraid to speak their opinion, who actually do agree with be like, this is just bonkers, but they don't want to raise their voice, because when they do, people like Jordan Peterson get demonized as a Nazi. The Marvel comics came out and made him the Red Skull, which is crazy, dude. He talks about how, he's literally talks about Hitler, talks about how bad they made him a Nazi, and all he does is try to make men better. Really, that's his end goal, is trying to make men more, clean their room and stand up and be men. Dude, and
no,
no, what are you gonna say?
It's crazy. But because what you were saying right now about I'm not in school, but my wife she's still in school. She still goes to college, so she takes her classes online. You know what I mean? And so they'll have Zoom classes and stuff like that. And so I'll usually be sitting there listening to it. But you can tell, she has one professor that I'm like, yeah, he knows what's up, but he can't, he's always kind of saying little things here and there, but he never crosses the line. But I always tell her, I said, and she'll tell me, she'll be like, he knows. I said, yeah, he knows. You could tell he knows, but he doesn't cross that line. So it's weird that you bring that up, because it's that I think you're right, but it's that mob mentality. Nobody wants to get caught up in the mob. No. And going back to, like you said about Jordan Peterson, yeah, his greatest sin is that he's trying to make men better. But the attack and the target it's men, but it's not necessarily men because we're men, because we have penises. I think the attack is because of our thought process, our masculinity, our ability to logic and reason. See, men are more logical and women are more emotional. So if we can attack everything that's logical, everything that epitomizes logic and reason, and get people to be over here always thinking emotionally, then we can control them. That's really what it's about. It's not it has, and they did this. This is where I say the systematic thing, that the systematic oppression that has happened is when you've removed men from the household, right? And that the nuclear family is no longer around, and kids in the next generation are being raised primarily by a mother, a person that is more prone to think emotionally. Then you have the next generation who are start to think the same way. This is why you have men or young men that are very emotional. They get into fights. We see it on, either they become geared towards being passive, almost in to the whole LGBT thing, and you start to become trans, gay, and all that, or you become hyper aggressive. So now you're taking that masculine energy that was supposed to be used to provide and protect. Now you don't know how to do it because you're emotional. So the guy pisses you off walking down the street and you shoot him. Or you got we want to fight those guys around the corner. They're from over here. We're from over there. They wear red. We wear blue. We're killing them. You don't even understand. This is over pettiness. But this is what happens when you take not necessarily man, but when you take logic out of the equation. You took logic out of the household. You took that reasonable thing. Like, if it was up to, every time I got in trouble at school or the teacher said something about me at school, if I didn't have my dad, my mom would be like, well, that teacher shouldn't have yelled at you. I already know that because I can't do no wrong to my mom. Yeah. But that only hurts me. My dad, every time something happened, my dad would say, well, what did you do? And of course I would say, I didn't do nothing. And he would say, so that teacher just woke up today and said, hey, I'm going after you. And then obviously I would be lying. Obviously there was more to the story, but that's what you need. That's what stabilizes and provides balance. We've removed that in order to bring about this agenda, which is to control the masses. And you can only control the masses when they're emotional. Logical people never would have went through this. Mm-hmm. My dad's generation, my grandfather's generation, once they started talking about locking down businesses, they would have laughed at them.
Yeah. No, for sure.
They would have said, it never would have happened.
No.
Never.
Yeah, that's actually, no, yeah, because my dad's about to be 60 next year, and he even my dad has never been right leaning. My dad has always been in the middle, but you can see him starting to slip to the right because like that's just what happens, because like he is like from the generation where it's like all about working hard and like you're saying, like they would have never let businesses shut down. People need to earn money for their families, work hard for your families, teach your son how to be a man, teach your daughter how to be a lady, And I think interesting that you brought up the attacking the masculine, because you can see this in political discourse, because it's toxic masculinity. It's masculine and bad this, or women are women are, when they're doing something strong, they're hurting men's masculinity, but it's never women. It's never men, or toxic femininity, or men doing something that takes away from their femininity. It's always against masculinity. It's like Harry Styles isn't being feminine because he's wearing a dress and painting his nails. He's not. He's breaking down toxic masculinity. What, dude? That's feminine. You're wearing a dress, dude. Just whatever. You can wear whatever you want, but if you're wearing a wet dress, it's feminine. We can say that. We can say that out loud. But no, it's always breaking down toxic masculinity. It's breaking down the barriers that white men have instilled. It's like realistically, I'm going to say this. I don't give a fuck if I get yelled at by my listeners. If you think that masculinity and femininity and heterosexuality and males and females are a social construct, then you just have more problems than you think. Throughout all human history, there has been males and females. Like, yes, we can start talking about breaking down the barriers of what that means, but throughout all human history, there has been men and women. And that's not because there was an oppressive force saying that you need to be a boy and you need to be a girl. That's just because it's biological, and that's just how it works. We can talk about now we're growing up and everything like that, and society is different and how people act and certain like things. We can all be okay with everybody. We're all people. What I'm saying is, if you really think that masculinity and femininity are things that were just socially constructed, I can't even have an argument with you. Like, what are we even talking about?
Yeah, no, you can't. That's the thing. Most of these arguments you can't, because the premise is already, I disagree with it.
Yeah.
Like we're not gonna start with the premise of that uh, 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 a person's physiologically, biologically, like, is wrong. I'm not gonna start with that premise that, that penis doesn't make you a man, or a male. I'm not gonna start with that premise. Like, so we disagree with that. We can't have these conversations, and that's the
Mm.
problem. But I think that that's what they do. They set that up on purpose. They set it on purpose to where we can't have the conversation, and they say, "Well, see, you're a bigot. You don't want to hear what we have to say." And it's like, well, wait a minute. No, I'm just saying. You're really going to ask me to deny what I'm seeing right in front of my face?
Yeah.
That's the core issue. You know what I mean? But the thing is that if they can get you to do that, if they can get you to say, yeah, what I'm seeing right in front of my face is not real. I mean, it's not real. Then they can do that with anything else.
Mm-hmm.
They can now they do it politically. Now they'll do it in socially. They'll do it with anything that they're trying to do policy wise. They can do now. Okay, well, wait a minute. So so if we just decide, if we give you more of our tax dollars, you'll end racism. Yes, and we just believe it, because if you believe that over there, you've already ripened the brain for this stuff, and that's what's going on. The problem, that's why they're getting to the kids. I say this, the thing with the problem with the trans debate is exactly that. Going back to the masculine and the feminine ways of thinking, logical and emotional. If I can sit here and say that a man walking down the street look like you and me with beards or have a dress on, and I have my 7-year-old nephew with me, and he turns to me and he says, "Hey, why is that man wearing a dress?" I, by today's standards, have to tell him that's not a man, that's a woman. And he's going to say, why is he a woman? He has a beard, he has everything that males have that you have. Why is he a woman? And I have to tell him by today's standards, because that's how he feels inside. So what does that do to him? That tells him that the message is clear to my 7-year-old nephew right there, that how a person feels is more important than what's real. So
Yeah.
if I can get you on that frame of thought from 7 years old, 6 years old, if I can get you on that frame of thought, how many other things can I throw your way that will just defy logic, but you'll go along with it?
I didn't even think about that. That's crazy.
I mean, that's the look. If you want to be a woman and say you're a woman and live and wear a dress, what do I care?
Yeah.
But that's not the
Yeah.
agenda. You understand what I'm saying? That's not the
Yeah.
agenda. See, this thing it's a slippery slope, and once we start going down this path, it's never going to stop. You're starting to see now they want to introduce what is it? Minor attracted persons.
Yeah, dude, that shit pisses me the fuck off, dude.
But this is like, when you talked about the end game, what's the end game? This is how this identity politics gets played. It's a slippery slope. So if you say, hey, you can, a man and a man can marry, that's great, cool. Why? What makes him? Well, he feels he's attracted to men. Okay, now I feel this guy over here says I feel like I want to be a woman. Okay, well, we can't deny that. We gave them this. We can't deny that. What's to stop the next guy from saying, I identify as an 11-year-old and my girlfriend is now 10, actually 10. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it's a slippery slope. You gave them that. You have to give me the same thing. And this is, like you said, democracy. Once you can start changing people's minds, then that mob rule, that mob collective thought starts to take place. And if you can, why that becomes dangerous and why he said that was because if you can step outside of that and you can become the person that controls that narrative, then you're the king. And if you have the means to do it, like big tech, to get the message out there, like mainstream media, to get the message out there, you have that position, you're king, you're God. They control the narrative, and that's what they've done.
Well, yeah, too. Like, just look at what happened with Jeffrey Epstein and everything like that. Like, we know that Jeffrey Epstein had an island of child slaves that they committed pedophiliac acts towards. And Bill Clinton and a bunch of high up people went there, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody talks about it. His right hand lady is on trial right now during the Rittenhouse, and everyone's talking about Rittenhouse. I'm sorry, I would like to know what the hell's going on in that. Talking about
I
minor,
want to know why the people we elected are going to an island
yeah,
where it's known that there's pedophilia going on.
human trafficking,
And,
and it's like nobody talks about it. It's like we're just allowed. We know that sex trafficking, human trafficking, and mainly of children, is a problem, even in the high ups of the United States, and we don't say shit about it.
but no, and but see, that's what I say. The mainstream media is the enemy of the people. They really are, because they're there to tell you what to think, to tell you what to focus on, and to lead you into a direction that benefits the people that you're talking about. They don't want to do a story. Why would we expect? Why would I wouldn't expect to go to McDonald's and then first give me a lecture on diabetes and heart disease.
No, no.
Like, they wouldn't do that. That's stupid. They're not going to tell you what's going to hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
So if a guy they revere, like a Bill Clinton, a guy that's up there, and he's going on these, taking these flights to an island that's known for sex trafficking, he's going to make sure that never gets out there.
Yeah.
And there it's an agenda. It's an agenda. Everything that they say, everything that's coming out of mainstream media and entertainment, Hollywood, all these, even sports, and then, like you said, the constant propaganda, it's now in sports. Like, you can't get away from it. So it's they're constantly throwing this at you, and they're constantly telling you these things, and they're all just tools. They're tools that are of the regime to keep power centralized into their hands.
Yeah.
So they're not going to talk about these things. They don't want to talk about anything that they did. Look what happened. And this is what blows my mind, because I don't care where you line up politically, right? If you have a guy that's running for the president of the United States of America, the most powerful country in the world, this is the top seat. If you have a guy and his son has a laptop that has sex crimes possibly in there, drugs, possible emails with doing business with enemies and making millions of dollars. If you have that type of story, why wouldn't you at least talk about it? At least because it's out there, whether it's true or not. Why wouldn't you at least look into it? Why did it's like on cue, all of them just shut up and just said nothing about it?
Yeah.
Yet it was out there. There was people corroborating it. That even the FBI said didn't say that it wasn't true. Even Hunter Biden has never denied that it's not his. That's at least a story.
Yeah, it's a good story too.
It's a huge story,
and
you're passing that up for what? Because you're protecting them.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. You know what I mean? If there was a laptop like that on Trump Jr., I would be talking about it. I would be like, wait a minute here. We got to look into that. Your dad is the president of the United States, and here you are making deals with other foreign countries that's getting you billions of dollars.
Yeah.
We need to look into that. I don't care if I support the guy or not, or whatever my position is, we need to look into that. That's what normal, rational people do.
Rational, critical thinkers, yeah. Well, man, I think that's a good way to end it. We've been on here for about an hour and 10 minutes. It was a good conversation, man.
I didn't even know that. Yeah. It was dope.
Yeah, dude.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, anytime, bro. I definitely want to have you on again in the next couple of months, or something.
Cool.
When we're both free. Yeah, bro. This was a lot of fun, dude. It was really engaging. It flew by. So thank you a lot, bro. Yeah. I'll let you know. I'm gonna turn off the recording.